stream, another live coding session here. So, welcome. And people are going to start rolling in probably here into the chat room, well, hopefully. But I think before that, I'll just do a quick review of the same thing I've been working on the last 2 episodes. This is the Customer 360 architecture / tutorial. And Customer 360, just to review that. Oh, and I have some remodelers in the kitchen right now. So if you hear any, or in the bathroom right now. So if you hear any background noise, it's them cutting things or hammering things, whatnot. So sorry about that. Anyway, Customer 360 is the idea that we're going to ingest different pieces of users' information from all the different systems in our enterprise. In this diagram here, we've got 3 systems, but it could be up to 12 or more systems in the enterprise. And they all contain some slice, some portion of the complete picture of a user. None of these databases have a single source of everything about a user, a customer, a person. So we want to bring those all together into a single, we want to integrate all that piece of data into a single user that we're going to call Customer 360. So we can get a complete view of a customer in order to serve them better and get some insights from them and whatnot. Now, the trick is that getting data from all these systems, getting it ingested is really the first part of the foundation of that. And we're working on that in this tutorial that I'm writing, the very first part of this tutorial. And so the 3 examples we're going to cover is we have access to online store data. We can only get to that via a REST API. So we have to pull that data. It's going to be pulled from this Couchbase data platform via a REST API, HTTP, JSON over HTTP likely, into this platform. We're going to have a CSV file that's exported every night from our loyalty program database. So again, we don't have direct access to the database. We just have the CSV we can pull from. That's going to be a Postgres database, by the way. This one down here, we don't really care what it is because we can only get to it via REST API. We don't really care about this either, but we're going to assume it's Postgres, and we have some sort of nightly CSV export from that, from probably 1 table or maybe a handful of tables. And finally, this is the hardest part, I think, for me right now, because this is an area I'm not too familiar with, is we have a MySQL database that stores some information about our customers in terms of home delivery. And we're going to, in previous episodes, I showed how we can stream data out of a MySQL database into Kafka via MySQL connector. I'm using a DBZm. And we'll continue to do that today. But the next part I want to do is I want to actually, now that we've got into Kafka, I want to actually connect it to Couchbase. And in, I think, episode 1, perhaps, I showed that part of it. So it's easy for us to go from Kafka to Couchbase. So now I just got to wire it all together so they're all looking at the same topic and they're all doing the same thing. And so that's really the hardest part. And everything else from here is going to be, at least I think, and you know how developers are with estimates, but I think the rest of it will be relatively straightforward. So if I get stuck on this Kafka stuff today, I might switch over to something else with the loyalty program or CRM. But the end goal is we're going to pull all this data into, I'm going to use Couchbase for Customer 360. It's a great way, NoSQL document database like Couchbase is a great way to pull all these different shapes of data together and integrate them, combine them into a single user profile so that at the end of this tutorial, you'll have all this data combined together on a regular basis automatically as the updates come in this Customer 360 platform, which we can then, in the future tutorials, we can start running queries against them, we can start building applications against them to do interesting stuff once we've gathered all that user information together. So that's the Customer 360 use case. Okay. So that's the quick story there. So what I had done last episode, I believe I ended with, so I was going through the, if I can bring it up here, I was going through this very nice tutorial from DBZm. I hope I'm saying that right, DBZm. And we basically got far enough so that I was able to start the Kafka Connect and I was able to actually monitor the MySQL database. I don't think I had gotten that far. I think I had done that after I ended the stream, but I was able to monitor this and to see that, yes, there's some data that's being sent from MySQL table into Kafka, and I could monitor that. Okay, I don't remember if we got this far. Well, this is actually the part where we use the REST API of Kafka to say, hey, start, use this connector, and here's the configuration for the connector. Start streaming that data from MySQL into Kafka. Okay, and that goes into these different channels, and DBZm puts each table into its own channel. I think we really only care about one channel, which was the customers. Inventory.customers. Yeah, so here's all the different channels in Kafka. Really only care about this one for purposes of this tutorial. But of course, the DBZm example has several tables in here, products on hand, products, and orders. I only really care about customers because we're looking at a customer 360. So that's fine. We can leave the other ones in there. There's no reason to take them out just for demo purposes. So the next part was actually something I'd struggled with, and I'm still struggling with, and hopefully I can get through it in the next couple hours of the stream here, is to get the once I've got this DBZm tutorial followed, to actually take it a step further and introduce the Couchbase Kafka connector to the solution. And so what I did, because I tried a couple different things and nothing really worked. So what I did was I went to the this is a public channel, so I'll just post it over here. But DBZm has a chat room. It runs on Gitter for users of DBZm to come in and ask questions. And so I went in there and I asked some questions yesterday, and I got some responses today. And I've had some more conversations with this guy here. I hope I'm saying it right, but Jiri Pechanek. Anyway, he has been very helpful to help me come up with a plan to attack this. And I think what I need to do is basically use one of the DBZm Docker images and extend it. You can see right up here, build your own Docker image. So I'm going to extend the DBZm Connect image. And hopefully this won't be too complicated. I'm going to extend that. This image comes with MySQL connector and I think a Postgres connector and things like that. I want to add the Couchbase connector to this image. So I was trying to go about this where I would just run a bash terminal directly in Docker and add the file that way. That's not really working. So he suggested I should just build my own Docker image. I haven't done this in a while. So I'm going to, it's basically going to be this from. I'm going to use theirs as a base image. And I'm going to copy the Couchbase connector, which is just a single jar file, into using the copy command of Docker to do that. So over back here in Visual Studio Code, I've got this folder here, Docker Connect Couchbase, and here is the jar file, which I can just download from Couchbase.com. It's the Kafka Couchbase connector. It's a Java jar file is basically like compiled Java package sort of thing. So what I need to do is I need to create a Dockerfile in this folder here. Okay, and I'm just going to go back over to the chat room here. If I can find it, yes. So we're going to start with this. And I think this is how Docker connection or Docker files start. I'm going to have to review this, but I also want to copy. I need to figure out the syntax for this, but I want to copy this, and I want it to go. What is comment in Docker? So I want to put the basically this file into a my screen down over here, into the Kafka Connect Couchbase folder in that base image. Because the base image has a Kafka folder and a Connect folder, or directory, I guess. Folder, directory, same thing. And then inside this connect folder, there is a bunch of stuff like DBZm MySQL connector, or DBZm connector MySQL, DBZm connector Postgres, and so on. And based on the chat conversation I had with DBZm, the DBZm chat room, if I add this jar file to a Couchbase folder in that connect folder, then when I run this image, this connector will be picked up. And at that point, I can make the REST request like I did with the MySQL connector to actually get that connector started. And I have to feed that some configuration information via the REST API, which I've already prepared, actually. If you look over here, I just sort of took the DBZm example. Ooh, that looks like a typo there. And made some changes to it. And maybe I'll walk through that. It might be helpful to walk through that. But let's get to the Docker stuff first. So I have made Docker containers before, but I don't remember all the exact syntax for it. So I'm going to have to do a little Googling here. Or in my case, Bing. Bing is my default search engine. And we'll certainly talk about that if you're interested. Okay. All right. So, I don't know. Creating Dockerfile image. I'm just trying to Google here. How to create Docker images with the Dockerfile. So that's what I want to create an image. And the way you do that is you write a Dockerfile, and then you can run, there's lots of ways to do this, but you can run command line Docker to take that Dockerfile and create your own Docker image, which will then live on my machine. I could also put it on Docker Hub or something like that, but it only needs to be on my machine. I can just ship the Docker file to anyone else who wants to do this. Okay. So the from is, so I think I got that part right. It's the base image for building a new image. So it must be on top of the Dockerfile. So I've got that from DBZm Connect 0.9. And I believe by default it's going to pull that from Docker Hub. I could also pull from other sources, but I think that's going to be fine. Okay. Maintainer, just as a comment, I guess. Run, I don't need to run any commands. I'm just going to leave that to the base image. Add a file from the host machine to new Docker image. There's an option to use URL. So what's the difference between add and, is there a copy? Let's see, copy. Maybe I want to do add. So let's start with add, and let's keep going down here and see if there's any examples. All right, so I've already installed Docker. I'm using Docker for Windows. This is a Dockerfile with Vim. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code instead of that. So download base image 604, fine, and it's going to be a run command. I don't need to do a run command. I need to do the environment commands. So this has a copy here. That's interesting. I'm trying to find an example of an add. This is not going to be a very complicated Docker image at all. I'm keeping it as simple as possible. So I'm hoping for an example of an add somewhere in here. Or at least an explanation of add versus copy. Okay, well, Dockerfile add syntax maybe. Check out some documentation. Yeah, so Docker build, I believe, is what you do to actually build the Docker file. But what's actually in it? I really want to know. Okay. So it looks like the syntax here is you're going to add some file you specify to some destination. So I want to add that to /Kafka Connect /Couchbase. I'm assuming it's going to create that folder for me. That may not be a safe assumption, but I'm assuming that's how it's going to work. Okay, so now we can go to like a terminal. And I'll go to Docker Connect. Okay, so at this point, I need to know the Docker commands to actually build it. And if add doesn't work, we can switch to copy. I'll keep that in mind. But so how do we actually? I think it's Docker build. We do a help. Get some suggestions here. Build an image from a Docker file. Okay. Can I give it a name? let's see. Docker build options, okay. I don't see a name. Oh, name and optionally a tag in the name-tag format. So just -t, and I'll call it, I don't know, Couchbase DBZm. And a tag. I don't know if I necessarily need a tag. Let's just try that. Okay, that didn't work. It requires exactly 1 argument. What did I do wrong here? Docker build options. Well, let's just try the --tag. I don't know why that made any difference. Huh, okay. Docker build. I definitely want to give it a name, otherwise it's going to give me something weird, but okay. Docker build requires exactly 1 argument. Okay, well, I'll go back to browser here and see what I'm doing wrong. Docker build. Don't need to give it any arguments. Docker build. Oh, I could just say build period, which would just right here. So let's try a tag here. Couchbase DBZm. Okay. This looks like it did something. So we are building a Docker image from Windows against a non-Windows Docker host. All files and directories added to build context will have so-and-so permission. Recommends to double check and reset permissions for sensitive files and directory. Okay. As a warning, it's a security warning. I'm not terribly concerned about security for this tutorial because, as I said in the last episode, I'm building this infrastructure up for my own tutorial purposes, but in most situations, we're going to assume that a lot of this infrastructure is already there. You know, you already have MySQL running, you already have Kafka running, or you know, you're not running Kafka and MySQL and connector all on the same machine, right? So we're going to assume that infrastructure is there. I don't quite understand this security warning here, other than the fact that I know that the DBZm image is probably some Linux image, and I am running Docker on Windows, so maybe it's just warning me to, if I'm expecting it to build a Windows image, then it's not going to do that. So, which is fine. That's no big deal. I don't need it to be Windows. So maybe it's warning me about the permissions that it's giving, and I should be concerned about that. Okay, so if I can do a Docker RMI, wait, no, it's not Docker RMI. What is it? How do you list the images in Docker? Docker list images, and list my local images, I guess. No, not Docker poll. That's not what I want. Is it? Let's just have a look here. Docker, not info. Docker images. Makes sense. Okay, so here's my Couchbase DBZm image. Terrific. That was easy. So what I want to do is so I have to go through that DBZm tutorial again, basically, which is not a big deal, but I want to just make sure first that, because I don't do this Docker stuff very much, that this is in fact doing what I expect it to do. So what I'd like to do is maybe let's open up a PowerShell here. Customer 360, okay, and fine. So I'm going to do a Docker start, and we'll make this remove after it's done. We'll make it interactive, and we'll call it, I don't know, Matt's test. Doesn't really matter. And we're going to use, what did I call it again? Couchbase DBZm. Couchbase DBZm. Let's see. Unknown flag. So is it? Well, I gotta refer to this tutorial somewhere. -it -r. Oh, it's not Docker start. It's Docker run. Run. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's interesting. So it's giving me an error message. And this is probably something that DBZm baked into the script, is that the Bootstrap service variable must be set, or the container must be linked to one that runs Kafka. So it looks like I'm kind of out of luck to just do this little quick sanity check. I have to go through the all the steps of the tutorial after all, which is fine. So I ran through most of these last episode, so I'm going to go through them very quickly here. I think I may even have some of them written down. But I'll just pull them from the tutorial. That'll be fine. So they're not on screen right now, but you'll see them as I go forward. So we start with Zookeeper. Oh, we got a conflict. Container name Zookeeper is already in use. Huh? I thought those were all dead after I... Oh, those are still up and running. Okay, interesting. I guess I must have closed the admin windows, but that didn't stop them? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop everything. Docker stop Zookeeper. Docker stop Connect. Docker stop Kafka. That's good to know, is that if I close the PowerShell window, it doesn't necessarily stop the image, just because it's an interactive mode. What else? Docker stop MySQL. And I'll leave the Couchbase one up. There's no reason to shut that one down, because that's just a very default. I didn't do anything special for that. So, all right. Oh, I got the Watcher one still going. This is one I don't think I did on the stream, but it just sort of watches the messages come and go. Okay. All right. Starting over. This is Zookeeper. Oops. Just sort of let that one run. We expect that to say it's binding to port 2181. There it is. Okay, good. So we're in good shape there. Open up another one. This is going to be the Kafka one. So it's going to link to Zookeeper. Okay, and the important thing to see at the end of this is that it's going to say Kafka server 1 started. Okay, looks like that's good. So we got, it'll be nice if I could label these somehow. I suppose that's what like Kubernetes is for. Okay, Kafka is running. Now, MySQL database. This is the sample one that comes with this DBZm tutorial. And it creates several tables. We only care about customers, but it creates several tables. And there we go, MySQL. And this is going to open and close a few times. And then I'm going to, again, run HeidiSQL just to verify that the database is up and running and has some data in it. Okay, let's try to connect. Okay, it's there. There's a customers table. It's got 4 records in it. Terrific. Okay. Now the next thing. Okay, so I'm going to skip the command line part of that tutorial. We just did that. Okay, the next thing is the Kafka Connect. Now this is where I'm going to have to be a little different. So let's just paste this in here. This is kind of my scratch pad right now. But this is what the tutorial says to do for Kafka Connect. Kafka Connect running the MySQL connector. And this is the part where I got the error message about not linking the Zookeeper and Kafka and so on, MySQL. That's all fine. I'm wondering if I also have to link to the Couchbase database. I may as well put it in there. Okay, and then, but instead of DBZm/connect 0.9, I'm going to use my own custom image and say Couchbase DBZm, which hopefully should have the jar file already copied in there, and we'll be all set to go. So open up one more PowerShell window here. See, we have a few viewers. If you're hanging out, say hi. Always feel free to ask questions. Doesn't matter how simple it is. I'm happy to answer any questions about anything. Doesn't have to be Docker or Kafka. It could just be about, hey, what's that image in the background? Or hey, what's that text editor using? Anything like that. I'm always happy to answer any question. My dad always told me, he told me this once, I think, and it was just, it seemed so profound to me, and I was very young. But he said, I went to ask him a question, and I said, oh, never mind, Dad, it was a stupid question. And he said, Matt, let me tell you something. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So I definitely agree with that. And so please, if you have a question, ask away. I'm happy to answer and talk about anything. Hopefully somewhat related to what I'm doing, but anything, I'm happy to answer. Okay, so for the most part, this is, in the tutorial, I'm copying and pasting this with a couple things different. So instead of using their base image, I'm using my own image, which uses this as a base and just adds one jar file to it. And I'm not sure if I need to do this yet, I'm also adding this --link db, and db is Couchbase, which is already running in the Docker host. So let's see what happens. All kinds of stuff is happening. Oh, this. So I don't need this anymore. Finish starting connectors and tasks. So that looks good. It looks like we're in good shape. Kind of curious, because I created this Docker image, my own version of Docker image from scratch. I want to just look at it a little bit. And the way you can do this is actually a pretty cool trick. And this is probably a hack. You probably shouldn't depend on this, but you can log in to Bash in an image that's running in Docker. What happened there? Lose focus. Couchbase DBZm. And sometimes this is helpful. No such container. Oh, no, it's not Couchbase DBZm. It's called Connect. Couchbase DBZm is the base image, but this is the actual container that's running. So you can see now I've got a bash prompt, but this is running inside the container, that container. So I'm going to go to Kafka Connect, and there's a Couchbase folder. Couchbase is not a directory. Okay, well that's problematic, because if so it looks like this is 8 meg file, which I'm suspecting I messed up in my Docker. Yeah, I bet I know what it is. So I said basically copy this file to this file. So it needs to be like that. So I messed up for sure. So we can go ahead and stop. Connect. So now I need to figure out Customer 360 Docker Connect interface. I've got this Dockerfile. I created an image, and it's wrong. So now I need to basically get rid of that Couchbase DBZm from my local repository. So I'm going to do RMI, which is remove image, Couchbase DBZm, and it deletes it. So then I can do images again. You see there's no more Couchbase DBZm, which is fine. So now I can say docker build period, and we're going to, I already forgotten the syntax. It was tag, right? Let's see, Nitrous Gamer Twitch. Try to make a code that can break number into prime factors. Try to make a code that can break number into prime factors. Not really related to what I'm doing here. It sounds like a homework problem is what you're wanting me to do there. That's interesting, though. Is that something that you are trying to do for homework, Nitrous Gamer Twitch, or just you're trying to get me to do some interesting coding, or is that maybe a sounds like a Project Euler problem? Nobody in the world has done it yet. Well, okay, there you go. So you're just messing with me. I kind of thought that might be the case as well. So you're saying if I could do that, then I wouldn't need to worry about all this other stuff I'm working on, because it would be a problem that no one has solved yet. Thanks for stopping by, Nitrous Gamer Twitch. Good to see you. Thank you for saying hey in the chat. I'm working on a much less scientific problem, I guess. This is more of a businessy type problem where I need to combine a bunch of information about customers into one location so that I can more easily serve those customers and run some queries to gather insights about them in order to improve our business in one way or another. All right, so docker build period. I'm going to tag. I'm going to call it again Couchbase DBZm. Okay, and the same warning from before. All good. And so now let's go back to, where was it? This one right here. So I'm going to run that connect again, and let's see what happens. I was running up here. Okay, and I want to just do the connect to bash again, which so many windows here. I'm getting myself all mixed up. Let's go in here and we'll see the Kafka Connect. So there's that Couchbase folder. Now, this is one thing that I'm not quite sure about, because notice that these here are Kafka and this is root. It's the owner. I'm not sure that's going to be a problem. Nitrous Gamer Twitch. Is it for fun or will it actually be used? It is. I'm going to be building this tutorial that will help. I work for Couchbase. This is going to be a Couchbase focused tutorial that will help Couchbase users or Couchbase customers get started if they're trying to do a similar customer 360 solution. And a lot of Couchbase customers, use Couchbase for this kind of use case, this customer 360 situation. And so I'm just creating a tutorial to help people who aren't there yet, just to get the ball rolling. So will it actually be used? I certainly hope so. But it's not something I'm building for a customer. It's something I'm building for our tutorials website. All right, so let's go into my Couchbase folder. And again, here's the jar file, but it's got this root ownership. So I'm concerned that it's different than the others. So I guess we will find out. So the next step is to actually hit the REST API and get those connectors going. And if you remember, I did this last time. I did this with Postman. So I'll just connect to it here, and I'll see we have no connectors yet. And this one here will actually get the MySQL connector started. So that should work as it did last time. And we got a 201, and so that's working. Now, I also did a similar thing with Couchbase here. So if you go to the Couchbase Quick Start, there actually comes with a config file. You can see right in here. Quick Start. I'm using Couchbase as a sink, a place where data is going to be put into. So here's a config file that says, okay, here's all the things, all the settings you need to do in order to use the Kafka Couchbase connector. So this is one approach. I can actually use this at the command line and get it started. Another approach, which I just sort of copied all these settings, is I can put them here into this REST request here, this post request, and kick off a similar thing just using the Kafka REST API. So I've called it Home Delivery Sync, and I've given it all the settings here. This is the topic that the MySQL connector is putting data into. And so this is the topic that I want the Couchbase connector to get data out of. So I need to give it the Couchbase bucket to put the data into, the credentials to get access to that bucket, and some other settings. I'm not going to talk about them too much, except to say that we want it to be stored as JSON data. I think this will work. And then this is the another typo there. This is the actual address of the Couchbase cluster, which, because we're inside Docker, actually we've given it a name. So with MySQL, I call it MySQL. With Couchbase, I've just called it DB. So we'll see if that works. So let's give it a try, see what happens. And it looks like it's worked. Okay, so we are in good shape so far. This is farther than I've gotten up to this point. So the next thing to do is see if actually data is getting into here. And it looks like it actually is. So here we go. We have a staging bucket in Couchbase, and this is getting data from MySQL. So there's 4 records here, 4 documents, which corresponds probably to the 4 rows in MySQL. Wow, this is amazing. It actually works. Now, it's a lot more information in here than just 4 pieces of data, right? So there's 4 columns and there's 4 values. Sally Thomas, email address 1001. There's a lot of other stuff in here that DBZm is giving us. We don't necessarily need all of it, but you can see here it's kind of giving us the schema. So there's the 4 fields, and then it's saying this is the schema before, I guess, before and after, and then here is the actual payload before and after. So before, that record didn't exist, and after we have this. So this is really what I'm after. This other stuff is interesting, and I may want to keep this, or I may not. I may want to just discard some of it or all of it. But in Couchbase is where I'm going to actually look at this and say payload.after, and that's what I'm going to use to update my record. So that was easy. That was great. This is actually might be something I want to stop right here and write a little miniature blog post to talk about how I actually did this. And I'm also going to take a second here to go over to this Git channel, this Gitter channel, and just give another shout out to Jiri Pechanek or Pechanak, Calvin Allen. Hey, what's going on, Calvin Allen? Hosting my stream. Cool. Yo diggity. Good to see you, man. You got here just in time to see me actually have some success. I got some cool stuff working. And I was just about to say thank you to Jiri Pechanak or Pechanek for his help, and it works great. Thank you. It works great. So he actually asked me if I would be able to or willing to contribute with a blog post or example. So at this point, he he's in a different time zone, I think, so he might be offline right now. Coral Roush. Hey, I'm lurking whilst working myself. What's up, Coral? Is Coral and Coder Phoenix two different accounts? Like one is like your professional and one is like you're messing around with game stuff. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Coral. Appreciate it. Says, nah, I renamed mine. Okay. That's cool. I think most of the time I've known you, I've actually just referred to you as Phoenix. And I don't think I even knew your real name for probably like 7-8 years. Yeah. Hey, something else cool I learned yesterday, Coral, I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, is that apparently Twitch, the Twitch chat at least, is an IRC server. They are using the IRC protocol behind the scenes. So this is just like the old days, man. We're back on IRC, messing around, chatting, and goofing off. It's just with more video and animated GIFs and sound effects and stuff. Yes, magnificent. All right. About the blog post, is this something you want me to post on a DBZm? Or I'm going to say post, contribute on a DBZm site, or can I post, or would you be okay with me posting it elsewhere? And one of the cool things about going through sort of an ambitious tutorial like this is that as I learn little pieces of information, how to do stuff, I can just, churn out little blog posts of cool stuff I've learned along the way. And this isn't probably groundbreaking. This is basically a 2-line Dockerfile. But if it helps someone else down the road, then, it takes me just, an hour or so to crank out a blog post. And if nothing else, it can also help me 2 months from now when I forgot how to do this. I can go back and read my own blog post. And that's really how I got into blogging in the first place. It's just sort of a public reminder, like a public wiki for myself only, to remember how to do stuff. So anyway, I want to give a shout out again to the DBZm user channel on Gitter. Jiri has been very, very helpful. Thank you very much. And we are in good shape to actually go back to this image. This part right here, from MySQL to Kafka to Couchbase, is all working. And just to show it again, let's go all the way through here. We'll add a new row, and we'll put Calvin Allen in here. And what is his email address? Let's see. Calvin's email address is badabing@badaboom.gov. Okay. So we're adding a new row to this MySQL table. And calvin.allen@outlook.com. Okay, that's his real email address. Calvin and I used to work together, and when we'd pair program, we'd make progress, or Calvin would make progress, and he'd get real hyped up about it, and his catchphrase was "bada bing, bada boom," which I think they stole for one of those hotel commercials. Anyway, so I inserted a row into MySQL. He still does it. Yep. I haven't heard it because we do a podcast now. We record a podcast, .NET Bytes. So I'll give .NET Bytes a shout out. We just recorded a podcast last night, and we live streamed it on Twitch, by the way. But I haven't heard you say "bada bing, bada boom" at any of our podcast recordings. So maybe it's something you do only in pair programming. Anyway, so I inserted another row of data. So what I'd expect to happen is there to be 5 documents in this bucket now, and there are. And so one of them, don't know which one, is going to be the Calvin Allen data. Says I'll have to up my game then. Yeah. In fact, Calvin, it would be great if you could record that as a sound clip, and I could use it for one of my my Twitch graphics, or you could use it for one of your Twitch graphics. That'd be pretty cool. All right, are there any indexes on this? There's no indexes, so I'm just going to create a primary index on the staging bucket so I can start doing some queries. Select s.star from staging. On it right meow. Okay, so I think I want s.payload.after. And you can see that, I'll just put that in table view. It's only got 4 records. That's not right. There's 5 documents, right? Yeah, there's 5 documents. Where's everything? Oh, yeah. The screen is kind of squished, so, but there we go. I didn't insert that directly into Couchbase. I inserted it into MySQL, which then was picked up with the DBZm connector and then put into Kafka, and then Couchbase is acting as a sink, listening for data in that topic in Kafka, and puts it right here in the bucket that I specified. So I am super pumped about this right now. You know, I'm tempted to be like George Costanza and go out on a high note right now, because this is something I've been stuck on for a little bit of time. So I'm pretty hyped up about this right now. In fact, I'm so hyped up about this. Why don't we play a little celebration video, and we'll say what's going on. 10 hours. Full 10 hours of this song. Okay, enough of that. Just a little bit of fun, just a little bit of celebration. You got to celebrate things, you know. You got to reward yourself sometimes with accomplishments. Okay. What now? I was expecting to have to struggle with this for another hour or so, but I am super hyped up. So let's go back to my README file, and let's just write up the process here. Just to go through it so that, again, when I come back to it a month from now or even tomorrow, that I know what I'm doing. So it says email coming your way with an attached WAV file. That is terrific. Thank you very much for that, Calvin. There it is. Bada bing, bada boom. I'll put that in my live streaming folder, which is somewhere. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Did anybody, did that come through?
Oh. Bada bing, bada boom.
There he is.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom. Love it. Okay, I'm going to have to change that to one of my little widgets, maybe for a follow, which is right now is, I think, Willy Wonka.
A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest.
I'm going to change that to bada bing, bada boom, I think. I love it. Love it. Okay. Noise. Yes, LOL. Okay. I'm happy about it. All right. So there are 5 parts, and so the first part. So I kind of started this document. I was going to walk through everything, MySQL, and then Postgres, and all that kind of stuff. But let's just sort of take a step back here, and I'm just going to rename this to like notes, and I will create a new file. And I like to write in ASCII doc. I'm going to call this, I don't know, customer 360.adoc. So I'm going to move some of this stuff over here. So customer 360 orchestration, customer 360. There are 5 main parts, and this would be a great place for the diagram. If I'm trying to remember, is it images dir images. So this is a directive for ASCII doc to say, hey, if you're looking for images, look in this folder. And so I've got an image called, take the space out of this, data ingestion diagram. Data ingestion diagram, PNG. And I'll just do a quick preview of this. Doesn't seem to like that. So maybe it's not images dir. See, I'm getting kind of sidetracked onto some ASCII doc stuff now. Thing is, I usually copy and paste that header, so I don't really remember it. But fortunately, I can check out my blogs. These are all open source, by the way. And I can see images dir images. Yeah, that should be right. Images dir images. Yeah. Data ingestion. Did I spell something wrong? Data ingestion diagram. Is it? Oh, it's a JPEG. That's why. It's a JPEG. So there we go. So now it should. Why isn't it? It's still not showing up. Data ingestion diagram. .jpg. This is the preview pane over here on the right. So when I write ASCII doc, it should be previewed over here. But it's not showing up. Am I in the right folder and everything? Oh, where is this Customer 360 doc? Oh, it's in the wrong, yeah. Put this in the wrong folder. Yeah, move that out. Okay, there we go. There it is. Okay, so now I can show that image in my tutorial. And so we're going to, this is going to be the home delivery, data ingestion. And just, I'm going to put some notes here to myself, but this is going to be describe home delivery data, describe flow from MySQL to Kafka to Couchbase via connectors. And this is going to be, you know, I'm probably going to link to the DBZm tutorial and just describe that briefly, maybe like one short paragraph of description. And next thing I want to do is to introduce the Couchbase connector to extend the DBZm MySQL tutorial and introduce the Couchbase connector. So how could I describe this? So I created a Dockerfile. One approach is to use the DBZm Connect Docker base image and supplement with the Couchbase Kafka connector. And this will be a link, which I won't worry about right now, but that'll be a link to the download that Kafka connector. The Dockerfile simply adds the jar file to the connect folder and makes the connector available to Kafka. And so at this point, I will source, and I don't know if ASCII doc recognizes Docker as a source, but I'll put that in there. And this is the thing I like most about ASCII doc, is I can, if I can never remember the syntax, I can link. Is it a link or is it import? Again, I'm going to have to look it up. Where was this over here? So where's the last time I did some code sample? Maybe in here? Oh, it's an include. It's include. So with this, you can say include, and I'm going to say Docker Connect Couchbase Dockerfile, and like that. And what that will do, hopefully that will do, Dockerfile. If I'm missing something here. Oh, it's 2 colons. 2 colons. Okay. And so what that does is that'll actually take this file, in this case the entire file, but there's other ways of getting just parts of the file, and we'll embed it in the document here. So if I were to go back and make changes to that Docker file, wanted to add more comments or something like that, then I don't have to copy and paste that into, you know, like a markdown file, for instance. I can just use this include directive and it will automatically update it, update ASCII doc file for me. Okay, and that's really it. So then the Docker file, and then instead of, what step was it in the tutorial? And it's kind of risky to reference that tutorial completely. Where was it? Right here. But instead of starting, okay, so instead of starting Kafka Connect with the DBZm, what was it called? DBZm Connect image. Oh, and I probably should also, okay, to build this Docker image. And this is something I can probably just, I don't know, PowerShell, I guess. Indent equals 0. Docker, and then I said, what did I say? Build, period, and then tag Couchbase DBZm. Okay. Build this Docker image and give it a name of Couchbase DBZm in your local image repository. And so instead of starting Kafka Connect with the DBZm Connect, with the DBZm Connect image, use the Couchbase DBZm image. This will be like so. So again, PowerShell, and then equals 0. And the way I did that, if I go back here, actually all the way down here, is this command. Right, so run IT name connect, suppose the port, group ID, config topic, etc., etc., etc. Link Couchbase to DBZm. The main difference in this example is the addition of link db, which refers to the Couchbase Docker image that I started. I guess the only other difference okay. Yeah, this definitely needs some fleshing out, but I want to get this written down here before it escapes out of my brain. So it might also be helpful to get a screenshot of the documents as they end up in Couchbase. So I'm going to start with and a screenshot of the MySQL ones as well. So I'm doing some stuff off screen here. Customer 360 images. There's that one. I'll also get a shot of this one. So Calvin, looks like you're going to make it into my tutorial. Save as. So I just saved a couple of screenshots over here in images. I haven't named them yet, but there's a screenshot of the Couchbase UI with the data coming into it. Here's a screenshot of the MySQL data before it went into Kafka. And it might also be useful so to note that the DBZm generates, is it generates is the right word? Stores not only the data, but also schema information. What else is stored in there? Well, basically the schema information. Schema information about each MySQL field. Looks like some information about the Kafka journey. We'll call it Kafka journey, etc. There's so much stuff in there. To focus on just the raw data, try running this nickel query in Couchbase. So it's going to be source SQL indent equals 0. And my query was, where was it? I'm going back over here. And we'll clean this up a little bit. Select. Something like that. The results of which will look similar to, and I'll just go back here and payload after. I don't necessarily need the after in there. I could just say like as something like as record. Yeah, that looks a little better. Oh, so I'll paste that in here, and the results of which will be in JSON. And we'll just take a paste of this. And that's a lot, so we can snip some of it out. I'll leave Calvin in, though. Bada bing, bada boom. It looks a little out of place there, I guess, but it's fine. I can always come back and change it later. Okay. At this point, any data mutations that happen in MySQL will be propagated. Well, propagated, is that the right word? Will be picked up through Kafka and make their way into Couchbase for further processing, because obviously all this stuff in these documents does not really need. We don't really need this to go forward, right? I mean, we may need some of this information going forward, but ultimately, I think what we need, especially for my example, it's going to be relatively simple. We just need this chunk of data here. So then I can say, oh well, this is. I gotta find Sally. Maybe I'll find the user by his email address or by its ID. Oh, this is a her. It's two first names, Sally and Thomas. Very confused. Find her record via the ID maybe, or by email address, or maybe by name, and then I can update. Maybe they changed their email address to sally.thomas@gmail. So I need to go and update that in my Customer 360 store. But this staging bucket is really only meant to be a temporary store of data to come in. So once I write the processing code for this, which will take place in Couchbase eventing, it will read that data in, possibly write a record to an event sourcing bucket, update the record in our Customer 360 bucket, which we haven't created either of those yet, and then delete this document. So this will only be here temporarily. Okay. So this is the MySQL part. So home delivery data, it lives in MySQL. We're interested in the customer table, etc. Okay, a lot of to-dos in here. A lot of work to be done. A lot of writing. Okay. So I could go two directions now, because I've finally made a breakthrough. I'm really happy about this. I want to see. I've got about an hour left here in the Twitch stream before I got to switch task to go into something else. But I can go two directions. So I can start working on a portion of this this tutorial that I'm going to call the simulator. And the simulator is not something the tutorial will be about. It'll just be a tool for me to help flesh out this tutorial. But it's going to, basically, it's going to put data into MySQL, which is what, and then eventually it's going to end up in Couchbase. So, I don't want to have to, if I want to actually show this thing in action doing, dozens or hundreds of records at a time, I can't go in here and add those dozens or hundreds manually myself. So I'm going to create a application, probably, it doesn't have to be a web-based application, but some sort of application that's going to connect to that database and put data into it. Simulated data into it. So I could go that way. I could start creating that simulator. The other thing I could do is I could work on the Postgres stuff. But really, I've already got Postgres running. Or I had it running the other day. And I'm not going to do any Kafka connector with that. I'm just going to do a CSV export. So that would also involve the simulator portion, which is going to put data into Postgres and also be able to export all of it into CSV. So I guess either way, we're starting a new project here. And I'll bring up Visual Studio 2019. So we're going to create a new project. And so this does need to be a REST API at some point. But right now, I only need it to really be a class library. Because it's just going to connect to MySQL and start putting stuff in it. And a .NET Standard class library will be just fine. I think that'll be adequate for now. So let's just call this simulator .core, and we'll call the solution name. Let's call it Cust 360 Simulator Core. We'll call this Cust 360 Simulator for the solution name. And I don't want this to go here. I want it to go in another folder. I put all my projects in a folder called zproj. Don't ask me why. Something I started doing a long time ago and just kept doing that. Customer 360. And this one, and it's going to be, so I'm always not really sure what this is going to create, but I think I want this to be in a Cust 360 simulator folder. Solution project same directory. I don't need to do that. Okay, so we'll create that. Let's just see what happens. This is the first time I've created a new project in VS 2019. You're watching it live. I've created lots of projects before in 2017. I've opened lots of projects with 2019, but I've never created a new project in 2019 until just now. So it popped up on the other screen. Got some errors here, so it's complaining about JetBrains. Yep, I like ReSharper, keeping it. And then this is one or more of your installed extensions will not be compatible with a future Visual Studio update. I wonder which one that is. Look at this, Calvin. 16.0.1 is downloaded and ready to install. You think ReSharper is the one that's not going to be compatible with a future Visual Studio update? I find that very hard to believe. So it must be using some API, and I'm assuming ReSharper is going to change that because if ReSharper doesn't work with Visual Studio, then ReSharper doesn't work. So 16.0.1 is a new release. Visual Studio. I think you mentioned this last night that there's already a new release. So as I was mentioning in the episode last night, this is normally something that I would avoid because I would be afraid it's going to break everything and it's going to set me back. But because of this cool stuff that Visual Studio team's been doing with updates, making it easier, I'm going to just go ahead and be brave and click the update button. And this will take a little bit of time, I think, but it's not a huge update, so it shouldn't be that long. In fact, the screens are coming and going before I can drag them over here. So Calvin recommends getting 2019.1 EAP5. I'm assuming you mean of ReSharper. 2019.1 Early Access Preview 5. And that's going to not give me this error with Visual Studio. I may pursue that at some point in the future. So Calvin says ReSharper, that's the only compatible version of ReSharper. Which is to say this is probably going to work. It's just getting that warning message. All right, look at this. Here's the update, downloading, and it's going to install it here next. This is just so much nicer than previous installation experiences. You know, I have a long history with Visual Studio, going back to Visual Studio 6, I believe, and this is a huge difference. It's so much nicer. So we're just about done with the update. For one, in the old days, you wouldn't get updates this often. But for two, if you did get an update, you would be terrified to actually install it. I would be terrified to install it because I'd be afraid I'd break something and it would corrupt my, maybe not corrupt, but mess up something of my configuration. Right? Visual Studio, have it the way I like it. I don't want to mess with it. But right now, I basically have no fear. I am ready to install pretty much any update. Visual Studio, and I'm doing it live on a Twitch stream, and it looks like everything's done. There we go, up to date. Love it. Well done, Visual Studio. Visual Studio team, or whoever you are doing this stuff. It's very cool. All right, so here's our project, just one class file. So, all right, so one folder, maybe too deep. That's fine. Better safe than sorry. Delete that class 1. All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually start putting some data into MySQL. So let's create a class here, and we'll call this I don't know, we don't necessarily need to call it MySQL. We can call it Home Delivery, and we'll make a repository. This should only be a few methods, so it's not going to be a true repository. I'll just call it that. Okay, and so we're going to need a few different things. We're going to need a create new customer. We're going to need update existing customer. I don't know if these need to be public or not. And we're going to possibly delete existing customer. We may not need to go that far. We may just need to worry about creating and updating. That may be enough for our tutorial here. I don't want to get too carried away with this. So we know that our customer is a home delivery customer has a let's go back to it. Has a first name, and last name. And we may want to add some more fields to this. I have to look at the requirements document. That will also probably require a custom Docker image, but I don't need to really go into that too much. So first name, last name, email. That'll be enough for now. So what I need to do is inside of this create new customer, we're going to just new up an object. Customer equals new home delivery customer. Customer dot first name equals something. Last name equals something. Email equals something. So I'm going to need to put relatively realistic looking data into this. And one of my favorite tools for doing that, and I'll just do this visually with NuGet, is I think it's called Faker. Or faker.net. I don't know, Calvin, do you have a favorite fake data library? Lorem Ipsum is another one. That's more like random words, random text. I do not. We use all as helpers, if you recall. That's right. I know. Back where I used to work, actually, this is a great presentation. If you ever get a chance to see it, Seth Petrie Johnson. I don't know if he invented this name or not, but it's called the object mother pattern, where for their unit tests and integration tests, that he's created some this framework of builders that new up objects and related objects and complex graphs of with to have default behavior that you can override. It's actually it was a pretty cool pattern, and I've used it other places too, beyond just where I used to work. But for what I want to do, I'm actually going to put this fake data into a database, so I need to actually get it from somewhere. Calvin says it's a twist on the builder pattern. Yeah, it is. It's, but I think Seth called it the object mother because it's not just building up an object; it's building up. Sometimes it's building up complex graphs of them. So anyway, let's go with we got Faker and Faker.net. Calvin says that's another pattern. Okay, maybe I'm confused by that. I'm not sure which one object mother is then. Anyway. Faker data. So it looks like Faker.net has more downloads. I don't know if that necessarily means anything. It's a port of the Ruby Faker. And then this is one from Codeplex. So that's probably pretty old at this point. Let's just do Faker.net. I think this is the one I use. Okay. Then I can say Faker.name first. And faker.name.last. This will pick or generate, I don't know how, some sort of real looking first name, real looking last name. Fake.internet.email and a real looking email address. I don't know if I necessarily need to create this object, honestly, because the next thing I need to do is connect to MySQL. And this is something I don't think I've ever done from C#. Is connect to MySQL. So I don't need to get too fancy. I'm not bringing an ORM or anything like that. I just need to put some data in MySQL. This one's got 6.7 million downloads, and it's from Oracle. This is probably the one. Let's try it. Here's the URL for it. Maybe find some documentation. Quick start. MySQL.net. Insert data. I don't know. Insert VB.net. This will probably look similar enough. How old is this? Let's see. 2012. Another thing we could do, I guess, is you could use Dapper, Calvin. But that still requires a DB connection. I don't know if I need to use Dapper or not, but I know Dapper will make things interesting. Dapper! We'll use Dapper. Okay, there's object mother. This is the Martin Fowler page. It's a class used in testing to help create example objects that are used for testing. Yeah, I think this is what we used, right? It's just a catchy name for a factory. Can return, yes, standard fixtures. So not randomly generated, because that's, sometimes you don't care what the actual data is, but sometimes you do. Like it depends on some other piece of data. It's connected via foreign keys or things like that. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty cool. So I guess Seth did not coin the term. After all, it was Martin Fowler. Okay. All right. So we could dependency inject IDB connection. And so we could just say DB connection equals. Actually, there's a resharper shortcut for this. Introduce a read-only field. So then if I bring in Dapper, this would be pretty easy to do. 17.6 million downloads. I'd say that you picked a good project of the week, Calvin. Spoiler alert, by the way. Dapper is our project of the week. Still doesn't have its own logo, though. So what we can do is we can say we have, is it DB connection? That's what it extends, right? DB connection. So we can do using Dapper. Execute. Oh, there's not an insert. It's just an execute scalar. Execute just. Yeah, this is Dapper. So I can execute. Execute. Is execute fine? Yeah, it doesn't even have to have the object, I guess, but it'll be fine. Insert into, and what was it? Customers. And what I've got is first underscore name, last underscore name, email, values. And we will put a little @ symbol here. Where we want to basically do this, right? And we can just say first name, last name, email, and that. I think that's all we need. And then we need to pass those parameters in, which would be in Dapper a new anonymous object of customer dot first name, customer dot last name, customer dot email. I think that's it. So I need a way to actually execute this and try it out, and I need to figure out how to create this DB connection. So at this point I need to decide if I want to create a console app for this or like a web-based app, because I know I'll need a REST API at some point. So I need like a web project in here. So I may as well create that while I'm at it. I could just make an endpoint that will exercise this. So let's go ahead and add a new project. ASP.NET Core web application. That will be sufficient, I believe. And so we'll call this one Cust 360 Simulator Web. All right, and then we can pick, so we've got ASP.NET Core 3. Could go to ASP.NET Core 3 Don't see why not. And we've got all these different options, so really all I need is API. Docker support. Do I need Docker support? I don't think I do, because nothing I'm going to do really involves Kafka or Zookeeper. It just involves MySQL directly, which the port is exposed. It's going to involve Postgres directly, which the port will be exposed, or it will be running around on the machine. Yeah, I think it's probably fine. Oh, you know, actually, if I'm running Couchbase inside Docker, Couchbase is going to need to make requests to this machine, so I probably should enable Docker support, and Linux is fine. Some hammering going on right now. Okay, so now I've got this core and this web project, and let's go into startup here. Okay. All right, so I need to figure out. It might be a little tricky because I'll be connecting to different DB connections. So I'd probably need to do some sort of, how do I do this? Well, I can worry about that later. Okay, so maybe let's just do a quick Google here to figure out how to connect to MySQL from ASP.NET Core. I'm sure someone's done an example of this already. I'm just viewing some things off screen here. Okay, this looks like it. So this is from C# Corner, and done some of this stuff already. App settings. So yeah, I can put a connection string. I don't need to go that far. I can just hard code it. That's fine. Context. Music store. MySQL connection. Get connection. I don't know if I need all that. I just need to. MySQL connection. Yeah, here we go. That's what I'm looking for, I think. So we're going to services.add. This will probably be add singleton, right? IDB connection. New MySQL, or we can make this a function, right? Is that allowed? Oh, I should take this, I guess. Return null. Okay, yes. So return new MySQL. Hello? Hello? IntelliSense? MySQL connection? Is that what it was? Oh, no, over here it's MySQL command. That's not what I'm looking for, though. I'm looking for... What is it called? Dependencies, NuGet. Where are we? Oh, no. Oh, okay. Oh, because I added it as a dependency here. MySQL.data. I need to add a dependency here too. Browse MySQL and put in here. It needs to be in the web project. I have it in the core project. It also needs to be in the web project because that's where I'm going to configure the DI for it. Yeah, I know. Okay, and then this is just going to be a connection string, I assume. MySQL connection string. Can't type. And I need to figure out what a MySQL connection string looks like. Which is maybe something I can find in here. In the config. example. Yep, settings.json. Okay. So you can kind of see on the screen here, server equals whatever, port equals whatever, database equals whatever, user equals. Okay. So I'm going to move that over here. And just, this is normally something you'd put in config file. This is not a program that I ever intend to go to production or to ever change this information once I've finished the tutorial. So it's completely okay to leave it hard coded. So the database is called inventory, which, well, I might want to change that later. Like I said, I may want to change, this is DBZm's example data. I don't really need products, orders, products on hand, so I can ignore those. But I probably want more columns and customers here, and I probably want a database not called inventory, right? Because this is home delivery, so I probably want it called home delivery. So I may go back and change that at some point, but not a big deal right now. Inventory, user equals, and let's go back to the DBZm quick start. I have so many windows open. Start a MySQL database. So password will be DBZm. User equals root. Password equals DBZm. Terrible, terrible credentials. Never use, probably never use root as a user. Probably want to remove that or rename it if you can. I don't know if that's possible with MySQL. And a password like this is way too easy to guess. I mean, probably harder than like let me in, but still too easy to guess. So never ever do that in production. This is not production. This is a demo app completely. This is a tutorial app that I probably won't even, I'll just vaguely reference it in the tutorial. I won't actually walk people through this code. So this is just to get some stuff moving in the background to simulate what all the different parts of an enterprise would be doing, all the different active pieces of data flying around. Okay. Okay, so now we've got over here, let's go to my controllers. And this is the default set of endpoints. Don't need any of these. Let me go back here. I can just get rid of most of them. Save myself a little typing. Route API controller. So let's just be explicit. Again, this is not necessarily the best thing to do, but we'll say route API slash home delivery slash create. And what's this API controller decorator? Huh. I don't remember that being. Maybe that was part of. I don't remember controller base being here either. Maybe this is some new stuff. It used to be just controller, not controller base. I don't know what the difference is. Anyway, so all this is going to do is iAction result. It's just going to create home delivery user, and this will get. And the constructor will just do, what was it, home delivery repository. Yeah, we're going to reference that. And home delivery repository, fine. Oh, didn't mean to do that, whatever that was. This is what I wanted to do. So then I can just say, create new customer. And we will return OK. Nothing really needs to be said there. I don't know, success. It's fine. All right. Compile. What is it going to compile? Uh-oh. This says 3.0 preview in here, Calvin. I may have not have changed that checkbox. Should be okay though. Okay, let's run the website. Okay, over here in Postman, it is... It's going to be something like this. API/home delivery create. Just a GET request. Could not get a response. What is the problem? Oh, over here, we can see the white screen of death. Unhandled exception. Unhandled was resolved. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Calvin says you can change the runtime in the project properties back to 2.2. So is 3.0 out? Or is that not launched yet? I figured they launched the same time as Visual Studio, but I could be wrong. What I forgot to do here is add, this will just be transient, add the home delivery repository to my container. So the controller didn't know how to create a repository. Okay, back over to Postman and send. It's still getting an error message. What is it now? Connection refused. I do have MySQL running, and I'm able to connect to it here. Alright, this is... Yeah. What did I mess up? So this says localhost. It shouldn't make a difference. At the right port number, 3306. 3306. Database inventory. This isn't running inside Docker, is it? I don't think so. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it's because it's running in Docker. I don't need it to run in Docker, but I could, if it is running in Docker, I could just do this, right? Calvin, nay. So 3.0 is not out, but you're allowing previews. I am allowing previews, and the new project dialog probably defaulted. The release date for 3 is going to be announced at build, so we still have time. Okay. I don't know. For some reason, I thought 3.0 and Visual Studio came out at the same time, but there's no reason that it needs to, especially with how easy these updates are going. This is running in Docker. Let's try this again. And I changed server from localhost to MySQL. Yep, still getting that error message. So I'm doing something wrong. It still says name or service not known. So I don't think it is running in Docker. What am I doing wrong here? Let's just switch to IS Express just to make sure. That's probably debug, but just make sure. Still getting an error. Unable to connect. Name or service not known. So this is what I'm seeing over here. Oops. What happened? So I was trying to run it in Postman, but if I do it in the browser, no, it can't be reached. Straight up can't be reached. Am I pasting the right thing? Oh, I got a response back from Jerry in the Getter channel. He says, great, both options work for us. We can just link to it from a resources page. Cool. So I will likely, if I can carve out some time, I will likely write a blog post about the Docker thing I just did earlier and post it to blog.couchbase.com. But put that on the back burner right now because I've got another problem I got to solve. One thing at a time. What am I doing wrong here, Calvin? Oh, it's still running in Docker. Or is it? It's fine if it is. Just want to make sure it's able to find MySQL. API home delivery crate. No, it's not even giving me the white screen of death. API home delivery / create. So is this running in Docker? Let's see. I don't see one. So Calvin, Alan, unpopular tech opinion. I hate Gitter. Oh, Calvin. Why you got us to hate? So Gitter is, it's pretty basic in terms of chat features. But the cool thing about it is it organizes by projects on like GitHub and stuff. So it's just kind of, it can be very handy, I think. So MySQL is running Docker, and the API is running outside of Docker. MySQL is running in Docker, that's correct. My intention was, I mean, I could have it running in Docker, sure. That'd be fine. It's just that this can't be localhost anymore. Or I could have it run outside Docker. Either way, right now, it doesn't make a difference because I'm not actually got to a part where it needs to run inside Docker. So my first thing is just trying to get it to work. But I know I'm able to connect to MySQL. I can do it right here. I can write a query, for instance, and see. You can see that this is in fact working. Okay. I have Gitter, Slack, Teams, and Skype all running at the same time. Well, I feel your pain. I do feel your pain about that. You know, I do a lot of events and interact with a lot of communities, and pretty much all of them have their own Slack channels or their own Slack. And unlike IRC, it's not like you can just connect to one Slack server and switch between, 5,000 different channels. You have to have like 5 different Slack instances, and I can just not deal with that. We're using Slack at Couchbase exclusively now. We've actually dropped a few communications channels. We kind of sprawled out on the communications. So we've dropped a few, and we've added Slack to replace them. So I like the direction that's going. So I'm reducing the number of tabs I have to have open. But I do feel your pain there, Calvin. Where is that MySQL instance installed and running? It is installed in, it's running in a Docker image. So right here, you can see this is the MySQL image. Coral, someone turned me on to using Rambox. It doesn't solve the problem, but does at least cram all the crappy Electron apps into one Electron app. Oh, another unpopular tech opinion, maybe. It seems like Coral is not fond of Electron. And I don't, that may not be terribly unpopular, because there are some Electron apps out there that are not written very well and eat a lot of memory, right? Okay, so that piece is in Docker, but the application you're writing is not. As far as I can tell, it's not in Docker. When I created it, I said, make it possible, generate a Docker file for me, because I probably will want to run this in Docker at some point. Of course, is unpopular. Where? Well, one man's unpopular is another man's popular. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, like Slack. I run Slack in a browser. I don't even have the desktop app installed. But like Slack and Atom, I think, and Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is actually an example of a really good Electron app. It does not chow memory like some of those other ones, but there's a few out there that just completely devour memory. And so there's always back and forth about, is it the developer's fault or is it Electron's fault, that sort of thing. So, okay, Calvin. So then maybe the app is running in a Docker container and the MySQL instance is running in a different Docker container. Well, certainly, if it is running in Docker, it's going to be in a different container. So the issue there is they might not be bridged, like the different networks or something. They're not linked. So I don't necessarily want it to run in Docker, at least not right now. So up here, you can choose IIS Express or Docker. And so I've selected IIS Express. Why don't I just hit this debug button? See what happens. I heart VS Code. Yeah. I like it a lot. I use it. I've been using it, as you can see today, to do a lot of writing and things. Coming up on 3:30, which is when I time box this Twitch stream. So if I could just get this one issue solved, I'd be happy and shut it down. Coral, they can be nice, yeah, assuming you mean Electron apps. It's a proliferation of the chat apps all running inefficiently in their own browser instances that I loathe. A fair enough criticism. I think the problem is ultimately like communication sprawl, not necessarily a technology problem, but everyone wants to communicate different ways. Kind of like back in the day, we had all those instant messengers. Like you'd have AOL, you'd have ICQ, you'd have, I don't know what the other ones were. And I remember there were several apps that basically tried to consolidate them, like Pidgin, Pidgin, into one app so you could switch between them very easily. But so you're saying that Rambox is maybe the Pidgin of today. VS Code does look pretty polished. That said, I'm sticking to Emacs. Yeah, fair enough. Walled gardens everywhere. Yes, sadly. Thanks, Apple, for making it trendy. All right. Trillion was another, I think. I used that in the past too. Was that one of those combined clients, or was that another chat protocol? I don't remember. It sounds vaguely familiar. I don't think I ever used Trillion. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's still not working. Still getting an error message. Yep, Trillion struggles to say it. Nice. I think I liked Pidgin the best. When I still use Instant Messenger, which is good gravy, so long ago. Like 2005, 2006 maybe. Remember using it my first job at university. We used Instant Messenger to just communicate across the room, across the floor. That's actually when I went to an office. You are connecting to MySQL in the editor with 127.0.0.1, but the config says localhost. Maybe localhost doesn't work into Docker. It should. Let's try it. Let's disconnect this, and let's put localhost in here instead. Yeah, it should work. So I'm still able to get to it from HeidiSQL. So I assume if I can get to it from HeidiSQL, I can get to it from my own ASP.NET Core application. Pidgin was great. I came across that later. I think Trillion was around first. That very well may be. The only thing weird with Pidgin, and I ran Pidgin on Windows, is I think it used Qt, which, Qt was a pretty cool library, but Qt apps always looked a little off compared to normal, Win32 apps. Then I'd be out of ideas. Oh, you turn into a pirate? I'm sure this is something really stupid that I'm just overlooking here. You use GTK. Yeah, GTK. Yes, sorry. It was a no map that got ported to Windows. Yeah. So the UI looked a little weird. The font stuff kind of different. The Chrome was kind of different, but it was certainly usable. Why don't I just try, I don't know. me just make sure that this thing is working, period. Comment out a lot of this stuff. And let's put a little method in here that just returns something. Yeah, a return success. Okay, let's try this. Okay, and it is over here. We want like that. Okay, so it's working. So it's definitely something MySQL going on here. You know, I'm kind of tired of copying and pasting that. Let's go to launch settings and nah, I'll just keep doing it. I don't necessarily want the default to be create a new user every time I load it. Oh, what? No, it said success this time. I didn't do anything different. Did I not compile? Calvin, you're saying my connection string is wrong? User, and so this is, remember, this is a MySQL connection string. This is what you're pasting there looks like maybe a SQL Server connection string. But I just got the success message. Did that actually put data in there? Yeah, it did. Okay. It's working now. I didn't do anything different. What the heck? I keep refreshing this. I'm going to add more records into this table, which is exactly what I want. And so now I've got, what have we got in here? 12 records, and so I should expect there to be 12 records over here. And there are. Okay. Software, man, gotta love it. I know, right? It's simultaneously the best thing and the worst thing. Okay, so we got a real simple endpoint here that's going to create a real simple customer record. And so what I could do is I create an endpoint. I did create an endpoint to create one customer. I probably want to create some sort of endpoint that will do some random amount of and maybe I could even specify this, but some random amount of new customers and some random amount of updating existing customers records in MySQL, and just have that be an endpoint that I can call from here, and that'll sort of something I could, you know, you could potentially run it as a cron job, or maybe I could even use Hangfire. Might be able to do that. Bring in Hangfire, use that as a background task. So it just does it every, you know, hour or so. Or 10 minutes, it'll make some MySQL changes, something like that. Okay, well, that's it for today. We made some great progress. Hey, Calvin and Coral, thanks again for hanging out. You guys are awesome. I think, Coral, you probably need to get some moderator privileges, unless I gave this to you last time. But appreciate you guys hanging out with me and doing some cool stuff here. Made a lot of progress today. I'm quite happy. But I got to switch on to another task now. I can't stream all day as much as I'd love to. I got to go into something else. So that's it. Thanks for stopping by. And I'll be back, at the very least, I'll be back next Tuesday morning. Although, if I get some time this weekend, maybe I'll do some more soldering or try to get some VR streaming. The new game from Alchemy Labs, Vacation Simulator, came out. And I haven't got it yet, but I loved Job Simulator, so I want to see if I can get Vacation Simulator and maybe stream that a little bit. Coral says, no problem. It's tough to interact much during the workday, but I'm happy to have you up anyway. Appreciate it. Calvin says, awesome, good stream. You guys helped make it as awesome as it is, so appreciate you stopping by. All right, I'm ending the stream now. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.